writers, and welcome back to Spooky Writes, your channel all about writing. I'm your host, who's secretly a ghost, Kemal Onor. Today we are talking about editing, so let's head into the storm.
It's the raven's call, the werewolf's howl, the vampire's bite. You search through the woods for safety, but all you find is... Okay, rights.
So why are we talking about editing, you ask? Well, because most people think you don't have to. I mean, aren't there editors that I can pay to fix my work? Doesn't the publisher have editors that can fix it all for me? The answer is yes, there are, but if you can't at least do one or two drafts of your own story or novel, why not just pay someone else to write the whole thing for you? So this series is going to help you understand how to edit your own work. That way you'll be able to tell people that you actually wrote the novel or the short story. Now we're all attached to our writing, right? So why would we spend hours editing a scene? Well, the big question that you have to ask yourself in order to edit like a pro is, does this scene serve the story? Does this line belong here?
She doesn't even go here.
Can it be trimmed down? Does my character have to do this? Or can it be done in a more streamlined way? Again, everything needs to serve the story, so if it's not, make like a liberal at a Trump rally and...
All right, yeah, get him the hell out of here, will you, please? Get him out of here. Throw him out.
You need to treat your writing as fluid, because we no longer write on stone tablets. And just because you think of an idea, just because you wrote something down, doesn't mean you have to keep it in your story.
No kicks!
You need to be discerning of your work. You need to decide what is necessary to the story. Does the sentence serve the story? Does the scene... Does it help move the character forward? Editing should go beyond the idea of fixing typos and catching grammar mistakes. Editing is when you refine your ideas. It's when you get to understand what is your story actually about, and then you need to push everything that you've written in that direction.
All I do is sit down at the typewriter and start hitting the keys. Getting them in the right order, that's the trick. That's the trick.
Some things you might want to look for in your writing are, you want to look for anything that you write that might be redundant. You might want to look for anything that might be redundant. Trim your language down. I think it's important to understand that there is no set rule of number of drafts that you have to do on your writing, on your novels, on your short stories. I've had different short stories take more drafts than others. I've had stories that when they're done, they're pretty close to the final version that I send out. So it's kind of on a case-to-case basis, but you need to read your stories. You need to be editing, because no one gets it right the first time, every time.
This one accidental click of the stylus.
And in order for you to show that you are respecting the writing process, you have to edit your own work. You can certainly pay editors to help write a story, but it's so much better if you need to prove that you are a professional as an author and
I'm doing it! I'm doing it! Yeah!
And do your own editing, because this will save you money. It'll save you the headache. It'll help you show that you understand grammar, and this is what this entire series, this new series on this channel is all about. Understanding grammar. It's going to talk about the idea of how to identify mistakes that you have written and how to edit correctly. A rule of thumb is that you need to do as many drafts as it takes for you to understand the story and for you to understand the identity of the story that you have written. Again, I've had stories that have changed more dramatically than others. I've had stories that I've written from start to end, and it's pretty much stays that way. And I go through. I've also had stories where I end up changing the main character. I end up cutting characters. I end up changing scenes. I end up completely changing how the story ends. And this is something that, again, is on a case-to-case basis. Every story is going to be a little different. So a big tip that I recommend, and something that I still do when I edit my own work, is I read my stories out loud. And I think this is so important to do, because when you read your stories out loud, you need to be able to read the stories. And if you find that you're reading your stories and there's a sentence or a line that you're getting tripped up on every time that you're reading through it, it's going to be a good indication that this line might need to be changed. It might need to be altered to a way that you will be able to speak it out loud more easily. It's also so important to take time when you're editing. There shouldn't be a rush. You shouldn't feel like, I just want to get it done. I'm sick of doing draft upon draft. You need to understand that editing is the real process of writing.
What happened? What are you doing?
Coach, I was tired.
So you need to go sentence by sentence and make sure that each piece fits correctly within the whole picture that you are trying to create, within the whole story. Again, with short stories, every word has to matter, every sentence has to matter, every scene has to matter. You can do some waffling if you're writing a novel, if you're writing a longer piece, but in short stories, you have to be so concise with your language, with your depictions, with the scenes that you are creating. And so I highly recommend that you read through your stories several times, and perhaps each time you look for something different. Maybe the first read through you look for grammar mistakes. The second time through you look for character development. You look for different each time you read the story. And I've read some of my stories so many times that I can pretty much quote them without looking at the story itself. And sometimes you have to go that deep into editing your own work.
My original idea was to stay underwater until I died.
And so I don't recommend trying to catch everything in one pass of the story of the novel, of one pass of the story. Take each time that you read through it, focus on one aspect of the story of the novel and try and clean that up, and then go through again and focus on a different aspect and clean all that up, and continue until you have the finished, polished version of your story, of your novel. Editing like a pro takes practice, it takes repetition, and you need to do this work, because if you're just expecting someone else to do everything for you, are you really the writer? Are you just kind of the idea person?
I had another idea! This was a magnificent day for Cosmo!
I would much rather be the person who gets praise from editors, who says, you sent me a version of this story that is so complete, it's in its final form already, that I don't even need to do much editing on it. And I've honestly had that kind of praise given to me, and it's one of the greatest feelings to be told that by an editor that I've caught all my mistakes, that this is a polished final version. Again, you want to take your writing seriously, and you want to be taken seriously as an author, and to do this, you have to learn how to edit your work. So edit like a professional, and this will make your writing stand out above the rest of everyone else. Because if you continue to read through your story over and over again, and you still enjoy the narrative, if you still enjoy the story, you better believe that this story is going to appeal to a wider audience.
Well, it took an hour to write. I thought it would take an hour to read.
And so it's actually the reverse. Just because you spend an hour writing something, it's going to be a lot quicker to read it. And this is because you need to put all the work in. Writing is hard work, and you need to do the editing. Don't expect someone else to do all the editing for you. Don't expect a publisher to say, oh, your idea is so great, we're just going to clean it up and we're going to change it around and we're going to fix all those little errors that you have in this piece. Editors and publishers expect you to be sending them final drafts and final versions of your stories. And with that, keep it spooky. And of course, here's your writing prompt for sticking all the way through the video. Beneath the stacks of paper, I discovered blank. So set your timer and start writing. Thank you so much.